All right, welcome everybody to the bonus content for free and cheap technology for thrifty lawyers. This is the holdover content since Catherine and I went on a little bit long. We didn't get a chance to go through all of the tips and things that we wanted to cover at the Weathering Your Storm program. So this will be the last third or so of that program. So if you are joining us after watching the previous program, welcome back. If you haven't yet watched the previous program, you should be able to access that content either through the small firm and technology section of the North Carolina Bar Association or through Lawyers Mutual's online CLE portal. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, please go ahead and do it. And so we're going to just go ahead and jump right into where we left off. Are you ready, Catherine?
Ready, Eric.
Should say that today is the first day back at work after daylight savings time. So both Catherine and I are having forced merriment right now. We're both dragging a little bit. So sorry if this takes a little bit to get the engine started. Okay, so Zoho Accounting was the first one I wanted to talk about today. And it's an alternative to QuickBooks. It doesn't do anything so particularly exciting or thrilling or anything like that. But what it is it's a cheaper version of doing everything that QuickBooks does. And if you have QuickBooks and don't like it much and don't like when you see your invoice hit your account every month, Zoho is worth taking a look at. It's got a pretty nice free tier. So if you're a startup law firm, I think it's free for any business that's earning less than $50,000 a year in gross revenue. And once you get over that, I believe the pricing at their lowest levels around $15 a month, which is about half of what the pay is for, or the invoice is for QuickBooks lowest level. So it's worth taking a look. It does everything just about as well. It's not especially slick, but you will note that it feels just a little bit cheaper, and it is a little bit cheaper. But if you're looking for a place to trim some costs out of a software program that you don't particularly like, I'd take a look at Zoho Accounting.
Well, and we'll look at Zoho products again because, Microsoft and Google get all the awareness, and then Open Office at some point was kind of in people's minds in terms of low cost office suites. But Zoho has been around for quite some time. It's open source. It's a really solid suite of products. So
It
we'll
really
we'll
is,
look at
yeah.
some more. So we talked about in the first segment using Adobe Acrobat alternatives. So I'm a big fan of Kofax Power PDF. It's 179 for a license. A, that's one cost forever
Can't beat
until
it.
you upgrade the software or get something else. So for those who do not need the mobility of Acrobat, I think Kofax does everything else you need it to do. Someone did mention, and it's true, that the Mac version of Kofax is not as good as the Windows version. But
Yeah,
you know,
happens.
that happens. Anyhow, if you do have Adobe Acrobat, the Pro version, which is a solid, it's people I think tend to think that Acrobat is the is the standard, and it is, but a PDF is a PDF is a PDF, however you create it. That's a
Yep,
standard.
totally agree.
Acrobat is just a product that creates PDFs. That said, if you've got it, use it and use it effectively. One upgrade. If you're running Acrobat 7.0, that is so woefully out of date, unsupported, unpatched. It's a security risk waiting to happen. So go ahead, and if you're going to use it, use the current version. The nice thing is that they've now renamed it so it's no longer called DC, but you still get the DC stuff. And DC was document or document cloud. So the nice thing about Acrobat is you can combine multiple documents, whether it's scans or emails or whatever. You can use it in a mobile environment. So you can use it on your browser, you can use it on your phone, and it all syncs up like the Microsoft Office suite. You can do e-signature workflows. You can do redaction. You can do document sharing. In fact, that's my preferred method for document sharing. Just open it up, click on the button, share it. People can comment on it. You can see all the documents you've shared. And it has a little portal. And you can get really super fancy with Acrobat. I'm doing a program with Dan Sigel, who wrote a book about using Adobe Acrobat in a law firm. It is well worth the read. He talks about creating tools so you can create your own little workflows and tools and automations within Acrobat. There's a lot to the product, but it's not obvious. So anytime you see a more or options or the ellipses or anything like that, dig in to the menus, and that's where you learn all the interesting things it'll do. So if you're going to spend I think it's now, without finding discounts, $20 per user per month. It's getting rather spendy.
It's expensive.
But again, there are alternatives, but if you've got it, use it.
They do pack a lot of value in there. And Catherine, we should do one of these programs at some point one day where we talk about ways to get the same things done on PC and Mac. But just for those of you Mac folks, Catherine mentioned that some of these things are not as good in the Mac environment. I'll just share that the PDF product that I use on Mac and on my iPhone and on my iPad is PDF Expert, which again is not a license. It's a one-time fee, not a monthly subscription. So PDF Expert's pretty good. Okay, online scheduling. So I think Catherine and I both use, in fact, I think she might have been the first one to introduce me to this, Calendly as an online scheduler, but there's a lot of them out there. They're increasingly getting these tools integrated in other apps. Like I use a calendaring app just for my regular calendar called Fantastical, and it has a built-in online scheduling feature as well. There's a few others that are integrated with website builders and things like that. So I'm going to talk nominally about Calendly because it's the one that I use, and I think it's pretty well the gold standard in this space. But in general, I just wanted to mention online calendaring generally. So, we have tried to focus in this program where we can things that are either free or cheap, or if they're not going to be either one of those, then things that will save you and your staff a lot of time. And online calendaring is one of those things that fits the bill for that. It is such an unreal time saver to be able to send somebody a link and have them be able to pick a time from your calendar without having to spend 7 emails or phone calls back and forth looking for time, whether it's for an initial consultation or meeting with an ongoing client, or even just having a management meeting with an attorney in your firm. It's just a great way to get things moving along and get scheduled really quickly. Calendly's Pro, they have a free version. I think the Pro version is probably, I want to say it's about $100 a year. I'm not positive about that. It's been a while since I've seen the invoice, but I pay for it. It connects up to, I think, 6 different calendars. So I have it connected to like an Outlook calendar, a Google calendar, and all of that stuff. So it can read all the different places I put things. And it is just an absolute godsend in terms of keeping my schedule straight and getting me to be easy to book with.
And if you're using a virtual receptionist, you can also let them book things on Calendly. If you use if you have a receptionist or a paralegal, they can book things on your calendar. So I've had people say, "Oh, well, my clients don't use technology," that kind of thing. Fine. If somebody calls in, wants to book an appointment, your team can pull up your calendar and book something through Calendly on it, and without having to pull up and it also creates that script for you, so you can ask specific questions when someone books with you. So if they're already a client or this is a potential client, you can have different calendar types for different types of meetings, and have a quiz or a series of questions so that you get the information you need to be prepared for this particular event. So it's this is the kind of thing where I tend to suggest that there's nobody in your office whose time is spent well by negotiating availability on a calendar. And this just gets rid of that, the impediment to moving things forward. So I'm a huge fan.
Totally agree. Yep.
So I wanted to mention Fastcase, and I put free in quotes because, we have to be hesitant about free. Free often comes with a cost. In this particular case, if you're an NCBA member, you do get Fastcase for free. We pay for it. So you can have it. And Fastcase is rapidly becoming a better product. They just bought their major competitor. And so we're going to see a human editor citator coming up soon. They're starting to build more and more AI into it. There's secondary resources, a lot of stuff there. But one of the things I suggest, even for firms that have a subscription to, you know, a Lexis or a Westlaw or Bloomberg or something like that, is those cost money. And you can go in Fastcase and do all the searching across as many jurisdictions as you want for free. So for firms that have brought in associates who used to, you know, recently been in law school and had free accounts with Westlaw and Lexis, they don't even realize it costs money. If nothing else, even if you have an all-you-can-eat account with one of the bigger research companies, your contract will be negotiated based on usage from the previous year. So if you need to go futz around, go use Fastcase and do all the searching you want for free. Get a sense of the right keywords, which jurisdictions you need to look at, all of that kind of stuff. So whether you're relying on Fastcase or you're using it as a secondary research resource, it's a good way to get started getting knowledgeable on a subject.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, behind getting to talk to Catherine for free as an NCBA member, I'd say Fastcase is probably the second best benefit of an NCBA membership. Just a terrific value that not enough people take advantage of. Okay, this next one, how to make a professional website for less than $500. I could spend an entire hour talking about this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to hit the highlights here for you. So let's kind of go through just step by step. First thing when you make a website, you probably already know this because you probably already have a website set up, is you need a domain name. You don't buy a domain name, you register it and you rent it year over year. You can rent it from any number of places. Those places are called registrars. You've probably heard of GoDaddy. The one I use is namecheap.com, but they're all, you know, about the same. They all offer registration services for a term of years. You can do 1 year, you know, like up to 5 years. And then they also want to sell you a whole bunch of other types of services as well. I'm always an advocate for just use the registrar to register the domain name and don't do anything else there. So that's the first thing. Register your domain name. That costs about $10 a year if you do your average little .com. So like matsonilaw.com or whatever. Okay. Next, you need a place for your website to live. A website's just a bunch of files. So think of it as like if you had a folder filled with Microsoft Word documents, a website's kind of like that, except it, you know, is filled with documents that allows it to be shown on the web, right? So you need some place to host those files. So you need to pay for domain hosting. This is vanishingly cheap. There are lots of options out there: HostGator, Bluehost, things like that. They start for around $3 a month. You can get it for less, but I mean, how much less does it really need to be at that price? That will be all the hosting that most small firms need. So a couple of watch outs here. When you use a professional web designer firm, they're very likely to try to sell you their hosting, which is very likely to cost $75 or $100 or $125 a month. Whereas they turn around and then host it someplace at a, you know, fraction of that cost, and it's just a profit center for them. So you can just say, no thanks, I'll take care of the hosting myself. I'll set up my own account. I could use the support in managing it and making sure everything's taken care of. But anyway, hosting your website is vanishingly cheap. Okay, next is you need the software to build the website. You have a lot of options in this space and they're growing like crazy, but the one I'm going to point you to is WordPress, which is getting pretty venerable at this point. It's been around a long time, but it also powers something like 2/3 of all websites on the entire internet. So, and that's the main reason I recommend WordPress. Not only is it free and open source and, you know, widely used across the world, but all of that makes it so that it is super easy to find folks who work on WordPress websites. You know, if you pick some arcane little, software program that makes beautiful websites, and you have to, only pick from a pool of 50 developers, across the, Eastern Seaboard or whatever, you have very likely increase the cost that you're going to pay for development costs. You go with WordPress, you have an enormous pool of developers across literally the entire globe, and that helps drive down the costs of development for your website. Okay, so using WordPress is the next thing. You can get that at wordpress.org. You can buy WordPress as a service, and that is wordpress.com. I know that sounds confusing. What WordPress.com does is it takes that hosting that I just mentioned and the WordPress software, puts it together for you. I can't remember how much that costs. I want to say it's like $30 a month. Does that sound right, Catherine? Do you happen to remember?
I do, because that is how I had a WordPress installation on a hosted server. You have to maintain updates, backups, all that kind of stuff. That's all up to you. I'm not an IT person, so I got WordPress.com, which is basically they provide the hosting, they provide the access to WordPress, they back it up, they update it, they do all that stuff for you, which is awesome. Plus, they have chat help, and for the business version, it's $300 a year. That's about $25 a month, and absolutely worth every penny.
Yeah, so that I've used that too. I think it's a really good service. Here's sort of the watch out for that. Like, part of what people love about WordPress is it's basically infinitely customizable. But if you go to wordpress.com, you part of the decision point there is that you forego a lot of the available customizations. WordPress.com is not infinitely customizable. You work within the parameters that they're willing to sell you for their $25 a month. But it's hard to beat, as Catherine said, as an overall service. It covers your hosting, it covers the software, and it covers all the patching and updating that you would, and the maintaining that you would pay somebody else probably to do, unless you're pretty handy to do it yourself. So that's wordpress.com versus wordpress.org. Okay, and so then last, you probably, unless you're very handy and really like monkeying around with websites, you're probably going to want someone to help you make your site look nice, to design it and develop it and all that kind of stuff. This is where most of the money goes. Like, we all feel tempted to want to do business with somebody down the street. You do that, and I think in North Carolina, you're going to find that the average price for a simple law firm website will be quoted somewhere between $4,000 and $12,000, depending on where you are in the state. Now, if you were willing to engage in using a freelancer, and there's a couple of places that I've done this. One is on a service called Upwork, and the other is on a service called Fiverr, Fiverr, Upwork and Fiverr. They're both basically like eBay for finding freelancers. Okay, they're just networks where you post jobs and then people bid on them, and then you choose one based on their ratings and things like that. You will be able to find not 10, not 20, but hundreds of people across the globe who are willing to build you a simple WordPress website for under $300. Like, you'll see them for $50, 99, 199, et cetera, et cetera. If you choose while you're looking at Upwork and Fiverr to just take the absolute highest rated folks, it might drive the cost up to like close to 300 or 350 or something like that. But in any case, the cost is an absolute fraction of what you'll pay if you're doing business with folks in the state. So basically, if you're willing to learn how to manage this project with freelancers, to establish a project with people you don't know and manage a team remotely that might be in the Philippines or Pakistan or Arizona, there is a lot of value that you can recapture and keep in your law firm. And so that's, I know that was a very fast run through how to keep the costs under $500. But that's how I do it. I'm happy to talk to anybody. You can email me about this if you have questions. Just a few more tips on how to keep your costs down when you do this. Number one, have your navigation planned and your pages planned. So when you sit down with your developer, you can say it's 4 pages. I want a bio. I want an about. I want a blog or whatever. Then grab 5 websites, preferably like law firm websites or something like that you like, and be able to tell your developer, I like the colors on this one. I like the organization on this one. I like the navigation on that one. so that they know they can pick up what you're putting down on that. Have the text written out already for your website, have your bio done, have the welcome done, have all that stuff ready, sitting in a Word document. Have your photos taken, your headshots, whatever pictures you're going to want to use. Have that stuff taken before you start your project. And lastly, know what you want to have happen when someone hits your website, the call to action, as the web people call it. Most of the time for lawyers, if they want someone to pick up the phone and call them, whatever it is for you, know what that is. And so you'll be able to articulate that to your web designer. If you'll follow those tips as well as that other plan, the other things I just enumerated, you can get this done for less than $500 and you will be a great client that will crank through this.
And while I 100% agree with everything Eric said, one deciding factor about whether to kind of go this quasi DIY versus getting a full service marketing firm to help you with a website, your social media presence, your SEO, Google Ads, local business pack, all that kind of stuff is, do you anticipate getting clients from your website or your web presence versus do you have a website so that people can validate that you're real and authentic and available? Because it really comes down to, are you a firm that gets most of your clients through referrals? And so if somebody asks me, do you know a lawyer who does X, Y, or Z, which happens every other day? And I'll go, I think I do. I will go to your website. I'm probably not going to contact you because I want to kind of help myself. I'm going to go to your website and I'm going to double check that what your website says is what I think you do. So sometimes, if somebody asks me for a labor and employment attorney and I'll go plaintiff for defense, then I'm going to go to your website to verify whether you're plaintiff for defense if I can't remember. So that kind of thing is why you have kind of what I call a business card website that just says how to get in touch, what you do, that kind of thing. If you are hoping to actually reel in people, random people from the internet looking for legal representation, that is a totally different value proposition. And you will need to spend some money on getting an optimized website that makes you easily found through Google search and then engages someone enough to stick around, watch your videos, do whatever. But that to get started, either way, having a simple website is better than no website. So there's that. And we're kind of talking marketing here. So I thought I would throw in the CRM. This is the client relationship management, or in other non-professional services businesses, the customer relationship management. I love the distinction between client and customer because frankly, you have both. You have clients, you have duties to clients, and then you have customers. And that's more of a thing where you think about, this is someone who comes to me to potentially buy a service, and how they're treated is essential, and following that sales pipeline and all that kind of stuff. And so we're seeing a lot of the practice management applications roll out additional client relationship management products or fold in some elements of that CRM. And so basically what this thing does is, from the time that someone contacts you, whether that's through a phone call, whether that's finding you through email or LinkedIn or referral or whatever, you start following their path. And you want to engage with them and have them come in for you could do that pre-intake work. So do they qualify as a potential client for you? Then you follow up with a consultation. And this just helps you track that whole thing. And then you can figure out, did this person bounce or did they become a client? And that's what the CRM handles. Additionally, if you want to send out newsletters, if you want to send out happy birthday notices, if you want to follow up with former clients as potential referrals, if you want to, have a grab a cup of coffee with the X, Y, or Z, this is the kind of stuff that starts helping you funnel and track and see where your conversions are. More sophisticated tools like Lawmatics, you can actually see which practice areas are most profitable, and start making decisions about, okay, do I want to drop this practice area because I'm just really not making enough money to warrant the focus on that when I can do, so they can get really sophisticated. It really is important that you use the thing, though. Just like any of the technology we talk about, if you're not using it, it's not going to give you that ROI. So CRM is a fairly newish thing that practitioners are using, and you do have to get into it. So Clio Grow is pretty lightweight. It's built into the product. I think my case is building in CRM elements to the product. And so look at what you've got already. But if you don't have anything, then I was looking around. Zoho has a very popular CRM product, and it's very inexpensive. You can start using it for free, but it's complex. I mean, it's kind of on par with Salesforce, which is a fairly complex CRM used by big businesses. So I found this product that Zoho's pushing out called Biggin, and it's CRM for law firms. So it comes with legal templates, and it manages your pipeline, your customers, communication, automation, collaboration. You can start with a single pipeline. So, say your estate planning, and 500 records, and that's for free. So you can get a feel of how this works with your what you do, where people come in, where they drop off. I actually worked with an attorney who he was seeing that he was going through the process, and when he sent his engagement agreement, people weren't signing. And so he figured out that they weren't signing because they were also shopping, going to his competitors, and they were sending out their engagement agreements with e-sign. And so because of the ease of use of e-sign, he was sending them out in paper. They were just signing on the dotted line with somebody that made it come through email. And so he got HelloSign, and I think for about 3 months thereafter, he sent me an email every time he had a big win, just by implementing something that simple. And so I think CRM can help you figure out what's successful, what's not successful, where people are dropping off. And since there's no cost to the starter pack for Zoho Biggin, something to start with.
Totally. That's a good tip. I need to go check that one out. Okay. So to finish up my last tip on talking about firm marketing, I want to talk about newsletters. Now, unless you've been living in a cave, you'll have noticed over the last several years that newsletters are having a moment. It's like a long, extended moment. It was like blogs 10 years ago, and or maybe 15 years ago, and over the last many years now, everybody and their brother is rolling out newsletters, and paid newsletters, all kinds of stuff. And so there's a lot of law firms that are using newsletters as an important part of their marketing plan. So they might be doing a newsletter for referral sources. They might be doing it direct to potential clients. It just depends on their practice area and who they're serving. But it can be a little bit daunting, especially if you're in a small firm and you're trying to keep costs contained, to figure out how to roll out a newsletter, where to start. There's a lot to do. It can be, you see them and they're beautifully designed and all this kind of stuff. And it could just be a little bit much to want to tackle. So let me give you a free way to tackle this. And it's also incredibly simple. And that is, I will assume, for the sake of this tip, that all of you are already on LinkedIn and using it, that you have dozens, if not hundreds, of connections on LinkedIn already. And so Microsoft bought LinkedIn a few years ago. And if you have not been paying attention over the last few years, they have morphed LinkedIn from the sort of boring resume site to like a full-blown content platform. LinkedIn has really become an indispensable part of marketing a small business and reaching out to referral sources and customers. So one of the things that you can do on LinkedIn, if you've never tried this, is you can write an article, and you can post an article for your followers to find. It will get shared. And it will help, just like posting an article on the web, it will help get, increase awareness of who you are and what you do. So that part's straightforward, but this is where it sort of gets supercharged. Is that Microsoft slash LinkedIn has made it really easy to take that article that you've written and turn that article into a newsletter. You just put an article up like on your profile, and then in the underneath in the little sub menu where you say post this article, you can there's another button that says like basically start a newsletter or turn this into a newsletter. You click that and it becomes the first article in your first newsletter, and it's that easy, and it rolls out to your connections on LinkedIn, and it doesn't require any technical chops beyond the ability to make like a Microsoft Word document. So super easy. One word of advice here is know your audience. So if you're mostly connected to lawyers on LinkedIn, folks you went to law school with, folks you practice with, don't write a newsletter that is meant for end user clients, and then send it out to that group of people on LinkedIn. It will be hitting the wrong audience. So think about who your audience is there. And if it's referral sources, think about writing a newsletter that or a series of articles that is useful for the folks that follow you on LinkedIn. But in any event, this is a super easy, free way to start a newsletter for your firm, and I would highly encourage you to check it out.
Totally agree. I started playing around with LinkedIn newsletters, and what I found both wonderful and a little depressing is that I have had an opt-in. Well, first I was in MailChimp, and then we moved over to Salesforce Marketing Cloud. But I've had a newsletter since I started NCBA 4 years ago. And I think I have 835 subscribers, and that's over 4 years. And that's, people going and clicking that they affirmatively want to subscribe. The first time I sent out basically I took my newsletter that I was already doing, put it into LinkedIn, sent it out. It sends it to all my contacts and ask them if they want to subscribe. I had 687 subscribers the first time I sent out my LinkedIn newsletter. So at that point, surpassing the number of subscribers for my hard work on my constant contact. So at any rate, it pays dividends for sure, especially since it's free. So we're going to switch to some security tips. And one of the things that we've all become painfully aware of because we just keep reading about hacks is that having even long, strong, and unique passwords don't do you a lot of good held in a password manager if the password manager gets hacked. And so you really, really need to also have that two-factor authentication set up. And I'm my husband's IT person, and he whines every time I make him do something that he doesn't want to do, and he says it's a pain, but you get used to it. The thing is, though, 5 years ago, SMS was the de facto standard for two-factor. You would go to log in, and if it didn't recognize the device you were logging in from, then it would say, I'm going to send you a text message code. Unfortunately, text message codes are no longer secure. There's SIM swapping. There's all sorts of different reasons that you don't want to use your cell phone as that second factor anymore. So the rise of authenticators has come out, and there are authenticators from Microsoft, Google. I have one from Dashlane. Keeper has one. There's a ton, and basically it's the same thing as getting an SMS. You don't have to stress about, oh, well, I'm going to have to learn a new technology. Not really. You get an app on your phone. And when you go to get that second factor, instead of getting a text message, you get a code that goes to an app. So same thing, little notification pops up on your phone and gives you a code, and you put it in. So procedurally, it's no different. You just have to go get an authenticator app. And then over time, as you're logging into websites, go and change to the authenticator instead of an SMS notification. And it'll tell you whether or not they will use a authenticator, and there will be a QR code. You take a picture of it with your phone and you're done. You don't even, so it's not that hard, but it is far more secure. A, you have to have two-factor wherever you can, and B, best practice now is to have some sort of authenticator tool versus getting the text message.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Okay, this next one is sort of the next step for security. Having an authenticator, as Catherine mentioned, is, I think, just essential at this point. And I think what goes right along with that is using a password manager. So the one I like is 1Password, but there's a bunch out there. Catherine just rattled off several of them: Dashlane and KeePass and Keeper. We used to tell folks about LastPass, but they've been in the news, unfortunately, a lot lately. And so I'm going to recommend that you take a look at some of the other ones. The one that I like to recommend folks take a look at is 1Password. It's available for both PC and Mac. It's a little bit more expensive than some of them. It costs $3 a month for an individual. It goes up a little bit from there in the pricing if you want to buy it for your whole office. If you want it for a family, which I think gets you a handful of licenses if you're just using it for like a spouse or whatever. You can do it for, I want to say it's $5 a month or something like that. So it does all the things that a basic password manager does. It is like a safe deposit box for your passwords. You create one master password, and then that becomes the key to lock up the vault. And then in that vault, you put all of your other logins. And if you are using the same password over and over again in a whole bunch of places, 1Password will help you generate new passwords with a click of a button. You can say, like, make it 24 digits long, have numbers, letters, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, all that kind of stuff. And it'll create long, unique passwords for you. So I have them, all be 24 characters long at this point. Makes it a little bit harder to crack. And 1Password makes that super easy. You can add it to any browser, so it just lives up in the top of your browser. So when you're navigating around online, everything is just one button clicking away from. So you click on Amazon, you go in and do it through the 1Password place, and it automatically formats and enters your username and password and all that stuff. So that's all the the basic stuff that 1Password does that all these other password managers do. It does a few other things that I think are really nice. It keeps secure notes, so you can write text notes out if you want to keep them someplace that's secure. I do that and share that with my wife in there. It also acts as an authenticator. So I use 1Password as an authenticator. So it creates one-time only passwords right in the same device where you are otherwise storing all of your passwords. One of the things that I came across recently that I just thought was super neat was, it basically has a function in there that allows you to track when you get asked security words when you're setting up a new login for a financial institution or whatever. It'll frequently ask, like, mother's maiden name. And if you've ever been part of a hack, like my mom's maiden name has been out for a long time now because it got scooped up in a hack a million years ago. So I'm always a little bit reticent about using that because it doesn't operate as like an effective hedge anymore. And so one of the things I keep saying LastPass, 1Password has in it is the ability to create those fields. So like mother's maiden name or whatever, and then you can have it auto generate an answer to that that's not like, say, your mother's maiden name, but is some other series of words, which is unique to that website. Because really, all they're trying to do is give you something to remember as an alternative to your password. And this allows you basically to create a longer, stronger, more secure version of entering your mother's maiden name. And that is like the tip of the iceberg. I could go on and on about what all the stuff 1Password does. Let me just say, like, overall, if you're not using a password manager, it's time to start using one. If you're not loyal to anything or you don't love the one you're using, check out 1Password. I'm a fan. If you're having trouble getting $3 a month worth out of it, just buzz me and I will walk you through some of the cool things it does.
And I switched to Dashlane, but all of my friends switched to 1Password. And so now I'm intrigued. The nice thing is that it is fairly easy to move from one to another.
It is, yeah.
And when I moved off of LastPass, I wrote the instructions on how to move from one to another, which I will put a link into our slides and
Awesome.
distribute those as well, because this is the kind of stuff where for succession planning is also important in your firm. If something happens to you, if something happens to me and my family, I'm the one who pays all the bills. So I'm the one who has all the logins or, the financial institutions, all that kind of stuff. It's really, it's not just about managing passwords. It's also about succession planning, business continuity, all that. It's a lot of benefits to this $3 a month.
Totally.
So another security tip is raising awareness. And there's a whole lot of different tools you can use to try to keep people aware of the biggest potential point of entry for a hacker, which is email. So the email is still the best attack vector the hackers have, because it's easy to send a whole lot of them, and it's easy to trick people into doing something because they're not paying attention. So we need to keep people very aware of scrutinizing their email. In fact, I was literally talking to an attorney on the phone the other day when he said, my computer's acting really weird. And I think he was either had downloaded something or he was being hacked actively while we were talking. And I didn't scream, get off the internet with me. But that's the thing. And I said, do a Control Alt Delete and see what's happening, because he said that screens were flashing up in front of him and stuff like that. So in addition to maintaining some awareness training, the other thing is have an incident response plan. So if that happens to you, you don't have to wonder, what should I do next? Because you've established what your incident response plan is. SANS is a security institute, and they put out this thing called Ouch newsletter, and it comes out monthly, and it basically focuses on kind of current exploits, so that you can send, it's Creative Commons licensing, so you can send it out to your entire team and republish it, and make sure that every month they're all reading an article about security so that it just stays top of mind. There's other things you can do, like send out fake phishing emails through KnowBe4. So when people click on them, you don't want to shame people individually, but you can say, and this is what we do at the bar. Every month there's a little report that says, there were 3 fake phishing emails sent out and 3 people clicked on them or whatever. And over time, you want to see an improvement. So everybody is aware enough to know that somewhere this month we're going to get a fake phishing email, and I don't want to be the one to click on it, because if you do, you have to go through a mandatory security training. But this is the kind of stuff where, again, we're dealing with deep fakes, voicemail phishing, text phishing, email phishing. So a security posture is more important than understanding what the threat. I mean, you're not going to be able to identify the threats because they're too fast to even be aware of. It's really knowing that social engineering is the easiest way for them to get into your system. I think the last breach that they talked about was a social engineering hack on one of their employees at home.
Yeah.
So
Right.
happens to everybody.
Yeah. Okay, I am old enough, as you can tell by my gray hair, to remember being in my law firm and having a phone system that lived in a closet, was a series of little weird metal boxes and a bunch of cables that looked like some kind of 1950s switchboard operator thing. When it was time to replace that, I remember going shopping for this, and we were just starting to move into more technology enabled phone systems. We ended up shopping through a bunch of them and picking something, and it was well in excess of $10,000 all in for the new phone system for the firm. And fast forward to today, to 2023, and it is just astonishing how much of the functionality that we spent so much time, energy, and money getting is available across any number of different voice over IP systems. So the one I'm using now is, I use Google Workspace for my business, and so I use the Google Voice attached to that. It costs me, actually, it's probably closer to, I think it's $12 a month, not 10. But it has just every feature that you could possibly want. It has more features than the phone system that I shopped for 12 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever it was. It's just incredible in terms of, ring you on multiple devices, call answering, the ability to announce, voice text, et cetera, et cetera. The list just goes on and on, more than I can cover here. I've also tried and used and been very happy with an app called Sideline, which is $10 a month, which does largely the most of the exact same things. The only difference is, as I recall, Sideline is a standalone. And so if you're, just one person running a firm, Sideline is a perfect phone system. But if you need to stitch together multiple extensions for other employees in the firm, you're going to want something just a slight bit more robust than that. And Google Workspace has been, their Google Voice associated with Workspace has been great for that. So if your last memory is of phones being complicated and expensive, the world has changed a lot, and you can get everything that you could ever want in a phone system for a really modest sum. So it's worth checking out. I'd start by looking at Google's options.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of, there's Uma for business, there's VoIPly for business, and we are talking 10 to $12 a month. And it really comes down to what features do you want? Do you want text messaging? Do you need multiple lines? Do you need call by mail? One of the things I love about all the voice over IP systems is email transcript or voicemail transcription. So I get an email with the voicemail that's transcribed, mostly for the humor value, because some of the transcriptions are hilarious. So if you're bored, let things go to voicemail and read what it thinks it says. AI is not taking over for people quite yet.
Not yet.
So one thing I want to remind everybody is that the products that you use to create documents, whether that's Word or Google or Zoho or OpenOffice or whatever, may mostly an Acrobat, Kofax, anything you create a document with has the ability to password protect it. So password protection in many of these is technically encrypting the document, but as with any password, it needs to be a long, strong password. But two reasons to think about password protection for documents. One, are you storing very sensitive documents in cloud? So whether that's OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox or wherever, even Clio. If you're storing things that have a ton of social security numbers, banking information, that kind of stuff, password protect the document. That's just one more layer of security that you can add so that if somebody did hack those online repositories, you would know that your documents have another layer of security applied to them. The other thing is when you're sending an email, and I talk to attorneys who, want to encrypt email, typically what's going into the body of the email is not the thing that you're worried about securing as much as the attachments to that email, in which case you can either share the document as a link with password protection on that, or just password protect the attached document if you feel like people are not ready for links yet. And then at the beginning of representation, establish a password with them. The downside to doing this, of course, is that you are in the business of managing passwords for your client. And so you could use a password manager to help you with that. But there are ways to protect documents without having to get a full-blown email encryption tool, especially because I have a lot of attorneys say, my clients don't like encrypted email. Well, if they don't like it, you have to explain to them why you did it. But at any rate, just don't forget that you can password protect your documents relatively easily and for free.
Okay, and last but not least, we've talked about a lot of different options here today, and we've tried to call out places where the pricing is friendly for small firms and so on. So I just want to say one more bit about that. There's a lot of places, especially around the Apple, Microsoft, Google end of things, where there is a consumer offering that is either a free or a vastly discounted offering beyond the business offering. So for example, you can use Google Voice for a consumer for free and Gmail for free, as opposed to paying the $12 a month for Google Workspace plus $12 a month for Google Voice for the business end of things. Now, that said, I'm going to say read all of your terms of service, read your licenses, make sure if you're going to use consumer grade technology that you're confident that it comports with your professional responsibilities. So read through those. But if you're really needing to keep a tight eye on cash flow and cost control, just know that there are some options out there. And like the Google Voice for consumers has basically every other thing that has every option in it that the Google Voice, the paid version does. And the same thing with Gmail and Google Calendar and all that kind of stuff. I think that's largely true for the Outlook options as well. So it's an option that's out there. Just go carefully. I always tell lawyers to use enterprise grade, professional grade stuff whenever possible. And you should be reading the terms of services and licenses generally, just to make sure, just in case anything ever goes wrong, you can show that you fulfilled your duties. But double down on that. If you're going to use consumer technology, just make sure you've read it, reviewed it, sign it, date it, scan it, store it somewhere. So if you ever have to defend your use of this technology, you can show the date and time and everything that you actually reviewed the thing. But if you do, that is a way to save even more money out of some of these options that we talked about. So I think that's all our tips, Catherine.
It is. I want to give you a 4-question checklist for these free tools that are out there. Who has access to the files? Will they turn over your files to law enforcement without giving you notification first? If it's free, you're the product, who are they selling the information to about you? And where is the information stored? Is it going to be in servers in Russia or China or something like that because they get a good deal on it? And those are the 4 top things I would do from a due diligence standpoint, reading the terms of service.
Great tips. Yep.
So that is all we've got right now. I will take this slide deck, annotate it with articles that you can follow up on, get more information about these things. And our contact information is here. I know that Eric and I love, the reason we know this stuff is because we get asked every day and we get to investigate and learn on your behalf. So don't hesitate to reach out.
It's been fun, Catherine. We'll see you next time.